Insurance Insights is a presentation of the Institute's Griffith Insurance Education Foundation, whose mission is to empower public policymakers through a greater understanding of insurance and risk management. Deeply committed to objectivity, all Griffith Foundation programming is strictly instructional in nature and does not support a position on any issues.
This is Frank Tomasello, Executive Director of the Institute's Griffith Foundation, and with me for this edition of Insurance Insights is the newly elected president of the National Council of Insurance Legislators, Texas House member Dr. Tom Oliverson. He represents the 130th State House District in Northwest Harris County, and he chairs the House Insurance Committee. Dr. Oliverson, thank you for being with me. Congratulations on your election to the role of NCOIL president.
Thank you, Frank. It's a pleasure to be with you.
I look forward to hearing more about your history of service to NCOIL and with NCOIL. I welcome your thoughts on risk and insurance related issues of importance to public policymakers as well. But first, if I may, let me ask you to tell us a bit about your background and about what led you to public service.
Sure. So I'm a board certified anesthesiologist. I've been in private practice since 2004 in the Houston area. I never really saw public service as something that I wanted to do, or really, quite frankly, something to be desired. But I kept having a lot of people tell me that I should consider it. I prayed about it, became willing to do it. It really ultimately came down to, it was kind of a God thing for me. And I view it very much as a ministry, as an opportunity, I think, as Alexander Hamilton once said, to truly serve your fellow man, and not so much about serving yourself. So I know that there'll be some lawmakers watching this that will resonate with them very highly, but it's really important to me that we look at public office, especially at the state level, not as a stepping stone to being, quote, truly great or doing the next thing, but really rolling up our sleeves and trying to make our state the best laboratory for democracy that it can be.
Thank you, Doctor. You've been active with NCOIL for many years, and you've served in a variety of capacities. Would you talk a bit about your involvement with NCOIL through the years and about what attracted you to serve that organization?
Well, interestingly enough, it was a letter that I received in the mail from, at that time, a state lawmaker from Oklahoma, Glenn Mulready, who's now, as you know, the Commissioner of Insurance, inviting me to join this organization that was dedicated essentially exclusively to the realm of insurance, and being a first-year or first-term House member on the Insurance Committee. You know, insurance, as you know, it's a deep subject. It's very in the weeds. It can be very detail-oriented. And if you don't come from an insurance background and you're coming into it as a lawmaker, it can be kind of hard to just sort of parachute in. I had been to NCSL, I'd been to ALEC. I didn't really feel like my need to understand the current insurance issues of the day was really being fed at either location. And so I decided to go to a meeting. This was in, as I recall, November of 2017, and it was in Phoenix, Arizona. And right off the bat, I was able to roll up my sleeves and jump in because there were issues that they were talking about. Particularly at that time, it was out of network, what we call surprise medical billing. That was something that NCOIL was looking at, tackling, and trying to figure out what would be the best model legislation for that. And we had some model legislation from the state of New York that was under consideration. And being that I was coming from a state that was very much struggling with this issue, it just really piqued my interest. And I was pretty much hooked at that point. I will say the thing that really attracted me to NCOIL is that you don't have to be elected to a particular committee. You don't have to pick one and not the other. You can literally be part of as many different policy areas of insurance committees as you would like to be. Whatever your bandwidth capability is, that's how many committees you can join. And so I have really learned a lot about the industry. Most of what I know about the industry comes from NCOIL, and I've made a lot of friends along the way and made some connections. So it's just been a great, great organization.
Appreciate you sharing that. And as a follow-up, may I ask you to talk a little bit about the kind of service to NCOIL that you've engaged in since 2017?
Well, one of the best things about NCoil is that if you come in and you're ready to be a part, and you're ready to roll up your sleeves and get to work, you can pretty much start carrying model policies from day one. And so very quickly after I joined, I began working on model policies. I'm a big advocate for price transparency in healthcare. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why healthcare is so expensive in our country, is because prices can't be known ahead of time. So I immediately turned my attention to a comprehensive price transparency model act for pharmaceuticals, for drugs. And so we worked on that, and I got to assist one of my colleagues with a model act that he was working on PBMs. That's former State Senator Jason Rayford, who at the time was president of NCOIL. I got to serve as the chair of the Workers' Comp Committee, which was kind of fun and interesting for me, although I think there's probably those outside of the workers' comp space that think workers' comp's not very interesting. I thought it was fascinating because I'm coming from one of the only states where we have an active non-subscriber pool model that still exists. And so, we have this alternative to sort of the 49 state solution that is workers' comp with the subscriber model. And so we have a different approach here in Texas, which some of our companies really like. And so to be able to have that, bring that to the table, talk about that was kind of fun. I have served as a chair on multiple different committees and vice chair on several committees as well. And I think most recently as vice president, I was able to have a major role with the dialogue ongoing between NCOIL and the NAIC, which is of increasing importance to me as we look forward to that interaction between state lawmakers and state regulators. I think having that back and forth conversation, we're all in the business of solving problems and making sure that our markets are as competitive and friendly to consumers and businesses simultaneously as they can be. So being able to dialogue with the commissioners has been a real blessing.
Dr. Oliverson, I want to turn our attention to the year that's just concluded. We saw a variety of insurance-related issues making headlines in 2023. As you look back upon that year, I'm curious, which issues do you believe were the most significant and why so?
Well, I think that one of the biggest things that we saw in 2023 in my state and a variety of other states was a large spike in property casualty rates. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But I think that was one of the more notable things that cropped up for us in the last year. And I think most states, including my own, are still dealing with sort of the aftermath of that and trying to figure out what's caused that, and is there anything that's caused that would be amenable to a legislative or regulatory fix? Is there a way to counteract that in some way? I'm not 100% convinced that there is.
As we look ahead to this new year, 2024, I'd appreciate your view as to some of the pressing priorities for state lawmakers involved in risk management and insurance-related issues.
So
that landscape looking like?
That's a great question. I think some of the things that we want to look at NCOIL in the next 12 months, I think I kind of alluded to one is so we know that insurance rates have increased dramatically in the property and casualty space in particular. And there's a variety of reasons for that. We've also noticed that carriers have begun to limit offerings or even pull out of certain areas altogether because of risk-related concerns. And so I think that is something that we have to look very carefully and sober-mindedly at to see if, in fact, there is something that we could do to enhance the marketplace, especially in these distressed areas like the state of California, where we're seeing, turnover of policies, non-renewals, and even large carriers saying we're not writing here anymore. We just can't have that. So we had to figure something out. We have been, I think, intrigued and begun a conversation. I mentioned that we've been visiting, the officers and I have been visiting regularly with NAIC. We're very intrigued at the role that the SVO has at NAIC, in particular, their evaluation process. There's been some concern that perhaps that actually may be anti-competitive or duplicative with what's going on in the marketplace. And so that's a conversation that's ongoing that we're going to intend to continue to have. I have heard repeatedly that reinsurance as a marketplace is changing, particularly on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. And I think it's time for us as American insurance lawmakers to get a solid update as to the direction that industry is going and whether or not it continues to meet the needs of the reinsurance risk that we have here in the United States. So I think that's definitely something that we'll want to be looking at. On the health side, I think we're in the middle of some model policies that we've been working on with regards to dental insurance. And I think also one of the things that I strongly believe in is that healthcare costs continue to be unaffordable. And I think that regardless of what kind of state you're in, red state, blue state, big state, small state, I think you're seeing that healthcare continues to be more expensive and less affordable. So I think we should aggressively look for ways to enhance competitiveness and, hopefully find a way to bend that cost curve down.
Dr. Oliverson, given all that you've shared with us, it sounds as if 2024 will be a very, very busy year for state lawmakers across the country. Any concluding comments on your side?
Well, I mean, I would like to say that I do sincerely appreciate the work of the Griffiths Foundation. You guys have been at every NCOIL meeting that I've ever been at, and I always learn something, and it's usually something big, whether it was, talking about, I think we were talking at one point about flood insurance and some of the things that we were seeing there. Most recently, we were talking about this whole property casualty thing, which I thought was a very good lecture. So we definitely appreciate that the Griffith Foundation is at every NCOIL meeting, helping to educate us. And my goal is to continue to make NCOIL a welcoming place for lawmakers, regardless of your partisan background. But if you're there, just literally, I want to make sure that my insurance marketplace in my state suits the needs of my state. And I want to be equipped with the most current knowledge and sort of the best tools out there to make that happen. That's what I want NCOIL to be. I want NCOIL to continue to be the premier place that a lawmaker engaged in insurance policy would go in order to get fed so that they can go back to their state and pass good policy, which helps preserve the state-based system of insurance regulation.
Dr. Tom Oliverson, the 2024 NCOIL president and Texas State House member, it has been a great pleasure to visit with you today. We thank you for your service, and I thank you for joining me to share your expertise on this edition of Insurance Insights.
Frank, I appreciate it.